I just wanted to move into talking maybe a little bit about masculinity, because one of the aims as well with a podcast is to help men understand themselves better and reconnect with their warrior spirit. So I wanted to
Mm.
just get your take on what is the role of the man in today's society, and what is that warrior spirit like? How would you see that, and how do we reconnect to that?
I mean, that's a big.
Mm.
I'm gonna try. I'm gonna try
Good
the
shot.
cause again, it's coming from my perspective. I'm not saying this is right. I've read it in 20 books or whatever. But where is the role of the man in today's society? Um, the role of the man is to get back in touch with his honesty, and the role of the man is to get back touch into his self belief and his understanding that he doesn't have to conquer, and he doesn't have to be a a heathen, or some, or a brute, or but masculinity is very, it's, for me, it's about being softer.
Mhm.
Masculinity for me is about being, is understanding that, there's much more strength in being versatile and softer than there is in being hard, and you know that the power is in the softness. The powerful isn't in the size of the sword as a warrior, and that
Mm.
I remember one of my really big breath work for me was with my coach, Robin Clements. And I'm coming into this space, and it's his first time doing a breath work with me. And I'm coming to this space, and I'm like, whoa, whoa, this is getting so big. This is getting huge. How am I going to contain it? What am I going to do? And he just comes over and he goes, the real warrior doesn't need to wear the armor, you know? And I'm like,
Mm.
I was about to ride into battle, you know, and he's just like, no, it's just surrender to it. And it was a real practice in surrendering. About, I don't need to be the warrior. Isn't about having armor, or to be a warrior isn't about to be you know um, a fighter. To be a warrior is about to be someone who can listen, who can support the feminine, who can support fellow brothers, who can, who doesn't have to be right all the time, and who's on a constant trickle of trying to find out where his ego is catching him out.
Mm.
You know, and I mean, much of that can be said for maybe the feminine as well. But
Mm.
it's just like the modern man, like it's broken. It's broken, like, and that's why it's so many people like ourselves are looking into modalities that, we kind of break the spell, or break the haze of what it is to be men. So we've lost our rites of initiation. We've lost our rites of
Mm.
passage. We we become very, leave our 18, 19, and kind of become boy men for almost another 10 years maybe. And we don't really
Mm.
start waking up until our late 20s maybe, or for me it was in my mid 30s. And but you always knew back that there was a different side to you, but you just playing a role. You're just playing a role of what it means to be a man in my part of the land, and this is what I do.
Yeah,
I,
totally agree with what you
I,
said there.
I think you answered it very well, and I love the part you touched on, how the warrior is the person without that doesn't wear the armor. Because for me, when I was younger, I had that sensitive side to myself that I decided to shut off, thinking that sensitivity wasn't welcome in the
Mm,
world of men. I had to be strong, and I thought strong was not showing emotion, not opening up.
yeah.
Sensitivity, it just means I was open to feeling things a lot more, which now I'm starting to bring out a lot more.
Mm,
and I always had this shield up. I literally actually got a tattoo of a shield over my heart, where my heart is. Like, that wasn't a subconscious thing.
Give YouTube a
You know
look
what?
there now, Cormac. Come on.
Well,
Give
I think
YouTube a look.
there's the shield there. But
The family
Good man.
crest. We all have it. The whole four
Good
of us.
stuff.
Yeah.
but I put that there. Like, obviously, I'd say, oh, I just wanted it because it was cool, and I wanted it because it's all the brothers we got it. But I put it over my heart because I just didn't want to be hurt anymore by mainly women. That I'd fall fairly quickly for a woman, and then that wouldn't really be attractive because I'd be a bit too forward. And honesty is probably one thing I don't have to worry about. But yeah, and then I just was like, fuck this. I'm just covering this thing up, and I just went pure cold for a couple of years when I was in college, and it was only when I did fall in love then eventually that I had to break open that shield, and it was a tough process reintroducing I suppose again what you're talking about earlier, like that lost boy that I left behind when he was like 7. I actually did some soul retrieval with Martin, and he found that sensitive boy back when I was 7 that I'd left behind because I just didn't think the world was going to be nice to him. So I said, no,
Yeah.
I'm going to just focus on building muscle, being hard, not showing emotion.
Yeah.
But that's why now I'm going through all my healing as well. Well, the last couple of years, and I think the role of the man is what you said, is that honesty piece and the ability to be vulnerable and be hurt, because that's where the real strength is. Like, to fall in love, you have to allow yourself to be hurt, which is the hardest thing, but for me, it's definitely worth it.
Yeah, I think what men are missing these days is being in touch with the emotional feminine side.
Yeah.
You know, like being shut off from that is what basically you grow up thinking being a man is. You know, being shut off from that side and just letting it back in. It's hard to do, but it's very freeing. I've noticed it being just so freeing, and like you were saying, like, we're missing those rituals or rites of passage. You'd hate to think that everybody's going to have to wait until they're 30 or in their 30s to start getting in touch with all of themselves, rather than, like you said, playing a role.
Yeah, that you think you've got to be accepted, you know, and you know, it's just this. It's true, and like, and well done, Cormac. I mean, it takes a lot to be able to kind of come out and kind of go, yeah, that's what it is, especially around the women, especially around the feminine, because you know, the words that we grew up with, the words that we use to put other men down, we call them feminine terminology.
Yes. Yeah.
Go away, you bitch. You know, go away. You're only an old woman. You're a pussy.
Yeah.
You're a pussy. You know, you go away, you little girl. You know, there are all these kind of off the cuff comments that men give to men, and the way they put them down is by associating them with, even gay. You say, oh, you're gay, you're gay. That associating them with, that's where their weakness is. That's the feminine is weakness. The feminine is weakness. So we're reinforcing that into you by telling you you're just a little crying like a girl, or you're a pussy. And you know, consciously, that's not what's really happening. We're just on the treadmill of, this is what we say. But again, hearing that in the body, in the heart of the body, receives that in the nervous system again and holds on to it, is like, it's all more emotional trauma, you know. So like we've got to watch our words. I really feel that men have got to call each other out on watching their words. That like, oh, just see that one over there, whatever that kind of laddism is, you know, to be a man that's confident and strong enough, it's just like doesn't put up with it. Even in an old group of friends, you got to be like, guys, I thought we'd be past this now, you know, because we're trying to put each other down, and this is where the subconscious of we'll say the hurt masculine is trying to cope by putting down the feminine.
Yes, yeah, I'd agree with that.
And it's like what I'm just thinking here when we're talking about this is when I was in that frame of mind, trying to be this man's man, was when inside I was so weak, like so weak. I couldn't control any of my emotions, but I'd hold them in and let them out in different ways. I'd let them out in anger. I'd turn to alcohol. I'd turn to drugs. I'd turn to anything to escape how I was actually feeling because I had no resilience whatsoever. And it wasn't until I started talking about the things that I was afraid to talk about. I started letting those emotions come up. I started letting myself feel those things that I actually gained some strength and resilience.
Yeah.
You know, so we really do need a balance of it, and we need to somehow bring this to start normalizing it.
It is. We got to start normalizing, but I think it's great because it's because we have that opportunity to be able to go down that road that we get to go, whoa,
Mm.
there's a different road, and that's how you can communicate with with young lads, and that's how you communicate with other men. That when you've been down a road and you've kind of gone hands up, that was me, I did that, I was fucking X, Y, and Z.
Yeah.
You know, you become you come into your truth, and there's a certain vulnerability in coming into your truth, and when you allow yourself be seen, people really see you then, and people really identify, because even sometimes with me and my breath work, I'm like, oh, maybe I'm going a bit deep here, maybe I'm just kind of stirring up too much of the muddy water or whatever it might be, and I'm just like, trust it, trust it, trust it. Keep trusting it, and it would always come back good.
Yeah, I even feel that myself, even talking here, just like things I would have said or done when I was younger. I was like, Jesus, I'm not proud of that. But then I have come to just accept it more and be like, I was in some sort of pain myself. And really, at the end of the day, I think what we're all looking for is, I think you mentioned it there, that sense of belonging or love. Like deep down, that's all I wanted my whole life. So I'm just like, I've forgiven my past self for the things he's done. But I do think that's what helps us connect with the younger lads. Like we're going to be going into schools again in September, talking to young lads between like 15 and 18. We do talks in mixed schools as well, but I think next year we kind of want to focus on some of these aspects we're talking about with the young lads. How the mistakes we made, as you said, in our paths, and like we've been there, like we know what it's like to be in that group environment and just, putting down the feminine, as you said. And I think that's why they will more connect with us more, and we can show them that there's a better way, and they can choose which path they want to go down. But I think at least give them the option of the other path, which obviously we never really seen growing up.
Yeah, we didn't. And fair play, because going into schools, it's very hard to. They get very. I mean, group of young boys. They're all very kind of like pack orientated, and like they're kind of pushing one fella forward, and who's going to go first, and But look, maybe I'm out of touch with that. Maybe that's changed now, but it's great they can go in and get a perspective of like strong, fit, you know, eh, self-authoritative men, and kind of go, yeah, we can still be all that, and we don't have to be to do it like dicks. You know what I mean? Or
Yeah,
to do it with needing alcohol or needing to smoke or needing whatever it is.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's getting that balance. Like we still have our masculine attributes like that.
It's just having a balance.
It's just
But
that
that's it. I
balance.
mean, the masculine without the feminine is very brittle.
Yeah.
Yes.
Like I said, it's terribly weak. Even though you're doing everything in your power to come across like solid and unbreakable, and inside you're just fucking crumbling like a weak piece of glass or whatever.
I remember it. It was just like, man, I can bench 120 now, so I'm pretty good about myself.
Yeah.
With bullshit like.
Such bullshit. Yeah.
No, it is true. And like even with the going into the younger lads as well, and Like Cormac said, we talk to young girls and young boys, even if we don't resonate with them now. It's like some of the things we speak about or talk about with them, it might resonate in a few years' time, or it might just make them more aware of their own actions. Like it's
You know, that you mightn't exactly pass them the baton, but you'd be somewhere along the line. You know, they're going to remember, hopefully remember the words and just start making better decisions. You know,
like you said, I won't be sitting here, you won't be sitting where you're sitting, and Cormac won't be sitting there if we hadn't done all the things we did in the past and made whatever we call mistakes or different. Like for me anyway, I won't speak for anyone else. Different things like things I failed at or made bad judgments on or bad judgment calls. If I hadn't done all them, I wouldn't be who I am today. So you do need to make your own mistakes, and I think you can't really prevent people from that.
Yeah, but I think that's what we question sometimes is like, do we need to go in and talk to them, or do they need to just make their own mistakes? But I think they're still going to go through their own struggles, but it's just giving them some sort of tools and frame of reference when they're in the shit that you can get out of it.
Yeah,
because that's, to be honest, that's the reason I do it, for the few young people that go into the darkness and just never come back. So that's why we do it, and we're just hoping that we do connect with those few people and just give them the strength and the belief to remember that it doesn't always stay like this. Things can get better.
look, there's a war on families, an absolute war. What a couple and children have got to go through to keep the fucking car between the ditches now. You know, financially, their own relationship, the relationship with their kids, how the children are going to get schooled. You know, your in-laws, whether you get on with them or not, and you know, it's all kind of hinging on a couple. And because our community is really broken down, before we would have said that it takes a community to bring up a child, and now it's like it's just two people trying to hang on, trying to bring everything in, trying to give their best. So stressed parents leads to stressed kids, and stressed kids, you know, are in as Gabor Mate says, you know, stressed kids are the ones that are open up to early trauma and early problems.
Yes.
So you know, so a relationship between a boy and his father, if he doesn't feel like his father is his role model, he's going to pick a role model in the schoolyard, or he's going to pick a role model in Manchester United, for instance. You know what I mean? And how then that becomes their role model, and you know, that role model doesn't really have any great intentions for them, but they kind of they veer towards the bully, or they veer towards the icon, and they've lost that connection of how to what's it like for father and son, or in mother and daughter as well, in the same way. So that so when you offer a group of young men, and you are the guiding mentors in it, it's going to allow them to step back into that in some degree, you know, and it's very valuable.
Yeah, I think so anyway, because I just remember when I was that age, you're kind of looking for guidance from some figure, and you always be like, as Darren said, that's what a man is. So we're hoping that we can be that for some people. Won't be for everyone, but we just have to be true to ourselves and trust that we connect with some. Before we finish up, I just wanted to ask you a couple of questions. The first one I'd like to ask you is, what does success look like for you?
Success looks like every day for me. I mean, success looks like in my family life. It looks like, you know, my kids are happy, and they're not throwing things at me. Especially my daughter. Our success for me is about that. You know, my relationship with my father is good. Our with my family is good. Success for me is that, you know, with the breath work, and I get feedback off people that they've just made such a positive difference, and that, you know, I'm just like, oh man, it's just this like this just fizz of the heart when you can hear when you get some of the testimonial back, or the thank yous back, and you're just like, yeah, that's why you do it. I mean, and I'm just figuring out a way of how to do what I love doing and get financially enough secure with it that that it's not a stress. And that's it. I mean, my that's where I need to go. So success for me is every day. There's no point saying I'll feel successful when I achieve this goal.
Yes.
So you're putting yourself on hold about feeling successful until a certain box is ticked, which is great. I mean, goals are great, but I mean, it's about practice of the breath work. For me, the practice of the breath work is allowing yourself be present, not only when you're doing it, but in the days that you do it, that you're present and that you can accept and allow things and be less reactive and be more patient and be more understanding and have more empathy and know that a lot of the stories are full of shit, and you're present, and your present awareness is that you're able to, well, as far as I feel it, is that your present awareness is success every day.
I love that answer now.
Yeah, that's a great way of putting it.
It doesn't have to be $1 million.
No, do you know what I've noticed we've been talking to a lot of different people, and the main theme with that question, Cormac always likes to ask that question, and the main theme is family and contribution, like helping others. That seems to be the main theme with that question that I've noticed.
I noticed that as well. Yeah, it's just everyone thinks, well, maybe things are changing, but sometimes you think things are changing, then you listen to people talking, and all they care about is
Material
getting all the money in this house, and you're just like, baby. So obviously there's a mix of views out there, but what we've noticed, everyone we talk to, it is the simple things, like just relationships. Like, how good are your relationships? Like, how much time do we actually and focus do we put into, like, how do I want my relationships to be with my partner, with my brothers, with my father, my mother, my daughters, my sons? So, like, I think that's just something that we kind of take for granted sometimes. Like, the relationships are just there, but we don't nurture them enough.
I can see how easy we take it for granted because of the stress levels.
Mm-hmm.
So the stress levels are literally, and that's a family that's doing fine. So you've and that's if two couples are working, and they've got to be working reasonably good jobs to pay a mortgage and a childcare for 2 children and a car. Plus the running costs. It's running costs of a house, but it's there's massive stress out there. So I mean, some people have ways of dealing with that stress, and it doesn't get to them, or it only gets to them every now and then. And some people turn into blunting their emotional understanding, and the big one in Ireland was always drink. And how drink, and I like a beer. I love two beers, but it's luckily for me, I don't need to open more bottles. But or it's not a management tool.
Yes.
So when something negative becomes a management tool, you gotta really look at it, whether it's cigarettes, marijuana, sex, or whatever. Or fighting. Fighting is a management tool for some people. Or blaming. So it's always you. You're always coming in. You're always doing that to me. That's a management tool to stop ownership of taking blame for some things, like. So it comes in again, not in the big addiction ways, but also people are addicted to escapism. I don't know. I mean, my work with the breath work. I mean, if anybody's listening who hasn't tried it, do please come on and try it, and send me a message, send me a review on it. I'm always looking to learn. I'm always looking to kind of understand the bigger demographic of who I'm trying to connect with.
What would be the easiest way for people to find you?
Instagram and my web page are the two ones I'm kind of mostly connected with.
For anyone that is listening to this, I would highly recommend. Like Mark Toner, was it that you said hasn't missed one in a year or however long? I could see myself following his footsteps because um, I'm just getting so much from it at the moment, and I'm not in that mind frame where I'm expecting the same thing every week.
Yeah.
You know, you said something in one of them, and it was like not to be, because I was actually a little bit in my own head expecting something, and you said just let what's happening happen. Don't be. I think it was something along the lines is don't be searching for it.
Yeah.
And as soon as you said that, then I just kind of let go and let it happen. And
like when there's an expectation, or when there's you go looking for something in it, like and which can happen. I mean, but when you're looking for it, it means you're in your own way for the whole process. You've just put yourself in your own way. So I like to use it as the analogy of you're driving a car and you let go of the wheel. And like that's the first step. And you're just like, okay. And I say, you strap your ego into the passenger seat, and now you get into the back seat. You get into the back seat and you just let the car go wherever it's going into the night, and just be totally comfortable with where it's going to go is going to be right, and that you don't need to reach forward or control it, or I want to remember that, I should write that down, or anything like that. It's just like let it all just go through. It will make sense when it needs to make sense. But again, the breath work is primarily a source of connecting with your nervous system, and your body holds a score. If you've anyone heard that book, the body keeps the score, so that all your trauma, all the kind of knocks, bolts, physically and emotionally, are in your nervous system, in the tissues, in the fascia, and by creating a habit of attending to your nervous system, that you're attending to, you're keeping the blood good, you're keeping the body better, in a better place. In Tai Chi and yoga, and there's a lot of different ways, hiking, etc. But you'll always find that all the big ones, the self practices, always have an engaged focus of breathing. And so the way I do it is just one of the ways of doing it.
And one other question, actually, Ronan, before we go, and that is one piece of advice you'd give to your younger self.
Piece of advice I'd give to my younger self, I'd say you're doing it right, because I'm happy now, and if I wanted to change anything, it would mean that I'm not happy with something now. So I wouldn't change anything, because changing everything risks being different to what I am now.
Yeah.
And I'm very content and happy now.
That's great to hear.
That's a good answer, yeah. The kind of thing I was saying earlier, just accepting those mistakes and I used to be very hard on myself for the mistakes I made in the past. I still can be at times. And then I'm just reminding myself that I needed to make those, as Darryl said as well, to get to where I am. So just be okay with it and forgive myself, I suppose, for those things I didn't know any better at the time.
Yeah, no, for sure. I mean, if I could go back with a hindsight and kind of go, I'm Ronan going back in time. Yeah, I do things differently.
Yeah.
You do things differently. Yeah, you wouldn't be a dick, or you wouldn't throw all that money away, or whatever it was, But yeah, of course you would.
Yeah, but it's nice to hear that you're in the place you want to be, and I can say that about myself at the moment. I'm probably happier than I've ever been. I think it's because I'm finally have committed to what I believe to be my purpose and living the way I want to live. I have been for a couple of years, like traveling and stuff, but I'm finally doing what brings me fulfillment, which, as you said as well, is what success feels like to you, is fulfillment and that family piece. So I think I'm doing the same, reunited with Darryl and back home, and doing that piece to try and help other people. So yeah.
One other thing, Ronan, you like poetry. I've seen on your Instagram, poet.
Yeah. So let's say about half of the poetry I read out on a Wednesday would be my own poetry. Yeah.
Oh, well, because we just brought this poetry book out there. You can't see it.
MacTeer Tales. Okay.
Yeah. And we just got that published there recently. There's myself and Cormac and 18 other writers in there just wrote the poems in. People wrote in about their deepest fears and insecurities, biggest hopes and dreams. And so we'll get your address.
That's absolutely, yeah. Brilliant. Brilliant. Yeah, that's fantastic.
I just seen there one of the days that you had poet written down, so I said I'd ask you.
This is what it comes back to being. As a young lad, I was inclined like that. I would be like, pick up the guitar, I want to play it, and I started writing poetry. And then I started doing musical theatre. Roughly at the same time I was doing rugby. My father got spooked. He said, he's gonna be queer. He's gonna be gay. I'm like, get him out of the
Get him back in the
theater. Get him back hurting. Get him back, bleeding. And look, that was just one of how that's where I was, and then then you kind of change to fit in, and I think it took me 20 years to come out of that,
Yeah, it's mad, isn't it?
Yeah, it is crazy. Yeah.
Appreciate you coming on for the chat, Ronan. It's been great, and yeah, we'll throw in the links to.
Yeah, no, the Instagram are www.brettwaveIreland.com. They're gonna and hopefully I'll be getting up into the in-person retreats. I mean,
yes,
they were just about to start getting really busy last year.
Absolutely love to come along.
Oh, they're 5 times more powerful.
It's been great chatting to you, Ronan.
Yeah, it's been
excellent,
great.
guys. Lovely chat. Thank you very much. And if you're down the Limerick way, do please let me know.
Oh, 100%.
Amazing. Thanks, guys.
Cheers, Ronan. Thanks very much.
Keep up the work. Cheers.